Mit diesem Außenrat der EU-Außenminister bringen wir die Europäische Union dorthin, wo das Herz Europas derzeit am stärksten schlägt. Hier nach Kiew, hier in die Ukraine. Die Zukunft der Ukraine liegt in der Europäischen Union, in unserer Gemeinschaft der Freiheit. Und die wird sich bald erstrecken von Lissabon bis Luhansk.
This is my video update from Budapest, Hungary on this Tuesday morning, October the 3rd. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a clown world. And it has to do with Annalena Baerbock speaking to reporters during the foreign ministers' summit that took place in Kiev. The foreign ministers of the European Union, they traveled to Kiev for this foreign ministers meeting, and Annalena Baerbock, she told reporters that the European Union will go from Lisbon all the way to Luhansk, will stretch from Lisbon to Luhansk. Annalena is saying in this statement that the Zelensky regime will win this conflict, and Donetsk, Lugansk, Crimea, they will capture all of it, according to Annalena Baerbock. And the dream, the vision from the European Union is that the EU will stretch from Lisbon all the way to Luhansk. Luhansk right now is part of the Russian Federation. Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporozhye, Kherson, those are the four regions that just a couple of days ago, September 30th, celebrated their 1-year anniversary as being part of the Russian Federation. So that was the statement from Annalena 360 or Annalena 560. She is making her way to the 7 Series model, Annalena 720. I think we're going to have Annalena 720 very, very soon. So yeah, that's the foreign minister of Germany, the chief diplomat for Germany, saying that pretty soon the EU is going to reach all the way to Luhansk. Why not just go further, Annalena? Why doesn't the EU just go all the way to Vladivostok? I mean, just have Zelensky march all the way to Vladivostok. The Zelensky regime, the Ukraine military that is going to win this conflict, right, Annalena? They're going to win this thing. Of course, we are getting reports now that the Ukraine military or the parliament is putting together a resolution, a bill, where they are going to, let me find it here, a motion for a law allowing mobilization of men over 60 years of age. Privates will now be able to serve from 60 to 65, senior officers from 65 to 70, with no limit on time of service. Does this sound, Annalena, like a Ukraine military that is winning? Does this sound like a Ukraine military that is going to go all the way to Luhansk, Russian Federation territory? Doesn't sound like that to me when you are putting together motions, bills to draft people who are 60 years of age. And just yesterday, Ben Wallace, in a Telegraph post that he wrote up, he said that Ukraine should draft youth, needs to mobilize the youth, and mobilize the youth ASAP. In that Telegraph article that the former UK Defense Secretary posted, he revealed that most of Ukraine's military at this moment is 40 years old plus. They're over 40 years old, most of Ukraine's military. And he wants the military of Ukraine to start drafting, start mobilizing teenagers, young kids, So that's the statement from Annalena. Look, Annalena, she has no idea what she's saying. She has no idea. She just repeats what she hears at cocktail parties and what she hears at various EU meetings, and she just blurts it out to the media. Like when she said that Germany is at war with Russia, she was probably sitting in some sort of a NATO meeting or drinking some champagne with some NATO officials, with Stoltenberg and someone else, and they were probably talking about how we really are at war with Stoltenberg. It was probably Stoltenberg, Annalena, and let's say Habeck, and they were probably at some sort of cocktail party, sipping on their champagne, eating their shrimp cocktails, and their caviar, and Stoltenberg probably told Habeck, yeah, publicly we're saying we're not a party to the war, but we really are at war with Russia. That's what Stoltenberg probably said. And Annalena heard that, and she was like, we are at war with Russia. Okay, that sounds good. Then she blurted it out like the next couple of days. She just repeats stuff. Xi Jinping's a dictator. I'm sure she heard that in some closed-door meeting. Xi Jinping, he's such a dictator. She heard Biden say it, that Xi Jinping's a dictator, so she went on Fox News, and she was like, Xi Jinping's a dictator. That's Annalena. So she heard during the EU foreign ministers meeting, Lisbon to Luhansk. And Zelensky and Kuleba were probably like, yeah, Lisbon to Luhansk. And so Annalena goes in front of the media and says, Lisbon to Luhansk. She is going to win Clown of the Year, though I have to admit, Justin Trudeau is very, very close. Baerbock was running away with it. And then you had Trudeau and everything that went down in the parliament in Canada, and Trudeau, he hit a grand slam. He scored a hat trick with what he did in the parliament in Canada, and he caught up to Baerbock for Clown of the Year. So I would still say that Baerbock is a little bit ahead, but Trudeau he gained a lot of ground. He gained a whole lot of ground. It's close. It is definitely close. And so this would be a good time to shift over to the Politico article. The Politico article with the title, let me pull it up here. This is quite an incredible article from Politico. I can't believe I'm going to read this. Fighting against the USSR didn't necessarily make you an NAZI. Canada's Hunka scandal is a demonstration of how, when history is complicated, it can be a gift to propagandists who exploit the appeal of simplicity. So this article in Politico, I'm not even going to get into their historical arguments that they're making here as to why fighting against the USSR doesn't make you an NAZI. I'm not going to get into the whole history of it and how they're trying to rewrite history, Politico. But in this article, their basic premise is that what happened in Western Ukraine during World War II was very nuanced. It's complicated, right? It's very, very complicated. And so yes, they are coming to the aid of Trudeau. Absolutely. But more than that, Politico is coming out with this article because the collective West, they are very worried that the narrative that they crafted, which is that Ukraine doesn't have an NACI problem. Bandera was a good guy. Bandera was a cool guy. Ukraine never had an NAZI problem, and this is all Russian propaganda. They're afraid that this narrative is crumbling because of Trudeau's antics in the parliament in Canada. And so that's the argument that Politico is making in this article. It is really, it's quite an incredible article to see in a Collective West publication. They're actually defending NAZIs, and they're saying it's complicated. It's very, very nuanced and complicated. And so we all know the truth. We all know the reality and the truth. This guy volunteered to fight with the SS Galicia. We know exactly what he was and what he is. There's nothing nuanced about it. But let me just make this observation. All of a sudden, World War II is very complicated, right? It's a very complicated situation, a very complicated history, all of a sudden, because you have to erase. Let's do this. Let's go around, and we'll go to the front of the parliament, because you have to erase Russia and the Soviet Union from World War II history, because you are now branding Russia as the villain. You're making a World War II like Mustache Man villain out of Russia. So you have to remove them from World War II history. And so they're coming out with the narrative that World War II, what happened in West Ukraine, was very, very complicated, very nuanced. So here's my point here. We can make one of many points about this Politico article, but here's a way to look at this. World War II is very nuanced and complicated, right? We don't really know who the good guys were. We don't really know who the bad guys were. It's very complicated. And West Ukraine, it was extremely complicated. Really nuanced is what Politico is saying. Really nuanced. Bandera, he's a very complicated dude. Very nuanced, complicated individual. So why is World War II complicated now? All of a sudden, World War II is very nuanced and complicated. But when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine, say everything that happened in 2014 with the Minsk agreement, why is that very simple? Putin bad, West good. Putin woke up one morning, decided to invade a country, and that's that. And we're the good guys, and now we're going to fight Putin. Very, very simple narrative, right? Very simple. They don't talk about 2014. They don't talk about Minsk. They don't talk about Minsk 1. They don't talk about Minsk 2. They don't talk about how the Collective West, how Germany and France did not honor the Minsk agreements. No, they don't talk about any of that. And as far as the conflict in Ukraine goes, it's very simple. There's no nuance to it. Putin woke up. He's a dictator, authoritarian, and he said, today I will invade Ukraine, because that's just what dictators do, right? They act irrationally, they do stupid stuff, they do evil stuff, and it's really simple. But now World War II, very nuanced. Conflict in Ukraine, very simple. Good guy, bad guy. Zelensky, good guy. Putin, bad guy. Biden, good guy. Putin, bad guy. Ursula, good pirate. Putin, bad guy. Olaf Scholz, good pirate. Putin, bad guy. Very simple. Conflict in Ukraine, Maidan coup, Minsk. All very simple. World War II, very, very nuanced. Very complicated. Very, very complicated. Bandera, very complicated. West Ukraine, very complicated. Anyway, there's a lot that we can discuss about this Politico article, but we all know what they're trying to do. We all know what they're trying to do. And I said it about a week and a half ago, or 2 weeks ago, when I was in Nicosia. They are working hard to rewrite the history of World War II and remove Russia from that history. They are working very, very hard. So let's stick with Politico, I guess. Let's stick with Politico. And they put out another article yesterday. And this article has the title, Leaked U.S. Strategy on Ukraine Sees Corruption as the Real Threat. A report obtained by Politico details specific plans to reform Ukrainian institutions and warns Western support may hinge on cutting corruption. So this article claims that Politico got hold of a super duper secret document, actually two documents. One's a simplified document and one's a very, very long document. And somehow, some way, Politico got a hold of this document. I don't know how they got it. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Politico got a hold of the super duper secret document from the U.S. government, which basically says that Ukraine is very corrupt and they really need to clean up their act. Ukraine really needs to clean up the corruption, because if they don't clean up the corruption, then countries wanting to invest in Ukraine and companies wanting to invest in Ukraine are going to get spooked. They're not going to want to invest in Ukraine because of the corruption. That is what the super duper secret document says. And I quote, Kiev needs to slay the corruption dragon once and for all. Perceptions of high level of corruption could undermine the Ukrainian public's and foreign leaders' confidence in the wartime government, the extended version of the document reportedly states. This document is sensitive, but it's not classified. And it has finally, it figured out the document, and the U.S. officials that created this document, they finally figured out that Ukraine is corrupt. Who could have known this? How did they figure this out? I had no clue. I had no idea. I really had no idea that it was a corrupt country. It's a new one for me. It really is. But the sleuths at the Biden White House, they did their research and they found out that Ukraine has a corruption problem. And it needs to fix that corruption problem. Otherwise, no one will invest. No one's going to invest in Ukraine if it doesn't clean up its corruption. And the last 15 years, where the U.S. government, Burisma, Hunter, when they were all investing in Ukraine, Pelosi's kid, Mitt Romney's kids, they were all investing in Ukraine. But, back then it wasn't corrupt. I don't know. Or the 150, 200, 300 billion that has already been given to Ukraine. It's already gone to this corrupt country. What about that money? Forget about that money. We're telling you now, the Biden White House is telling you right now that Ukraine is corrupt and it needs to clean up its corruption problem. Because if it doesn't, well then, no one's going to invest. The problem with Ukraine is this. Here's the problem. I'm going to tell you the problem with Ukraine. It's not that it's corrupt. It's that the corruption in Ukraine is not the kind of corruption that the collective West leaders conduct. You see, the collective West, the EU and the United States, they have a different type of corruption. Their corruption is at a much higher level. Their corruption is in the form of grants and funds. They create funds. They create grants. They create bills and funding that pass through the Senate and Congress, and it has all types of stuff in this funding that's allocated to different NGOs and different groups, and and their corruption is in the form of book deals or being put on the board of directors of, I don't know, say Netflix. They have a different type of corruption. The corruption in Ukraine is more crude. It's just more like, we're going to deliver, Zelensky, we're going to deliver to you 10 tanks. Okay, deliver 10 tanks. He gets the 10 tanks, and then he sells like 8 of them on the black market, and he makes his profit. Zelensky, his generals, it's just more crude, and they don't like that. They don't like that at all. Or Zelensky gets money and he buys like 5 homes, like out in the open. A villa in Italy, a villa in France, an apartment in London, an apartment in New York. And they're like, Zelensky, you can't take the money that we give you and buy apartments just out in the open. Why not? He's like, why not? This money come to Ukraine, I buy apartment. That's the problem that they have with the corruption in Ukraine. Ukraine needs to set up book deals. Zelensky needs to write his memoirs, and then they'll give him $50 million for his memoirs, a book that no one's going to buy, but he'll get an advance of like 50 million or 10 million or 20 million, whatever they do. Or he'll make a movie. He'll make a movie, right? And no one will go and see the movie, but Zelensky will get paid, and all the actors will get paid, and everyone's going to be happy, right? The Long Day. He can do a movie called The Long War. I say The Long Day, The Long War, starring Volodymyr Zelensky. The Big Counteroffensive, starring Volodymyr Zelensky. That actually would be a good way for him to make money. And that type of corruption is absolutely approved by the collective West. That's the type of corruption that they like. The Long War with Volodymyr Zelensky. This summer, prepare yourselves for an epic blockbuster starring Volodymyr Zelensky as Zelensky, with Kathy Bates as Victoria Newland, Brad Pitt as Jake Sullivan, Ben Stiller as Anthony Blinken, with Robert De Niro as Professor Biden. You talking to me? You talking to me? Come on, man. You talking to me? With a special appearance by Angelina Jolie as Olena Zelenska, and also starring Sean Penn as the evil dictator Vladimir Putin. This summer, Zelensky takes on Russia in the Long War. That's the type of corruption the collective West loves. Movies, book deals, board of director seats. That's the type of corruption the collective West absolutely loves. Oh boy. So, all right, let's move on now. Let's move on. Let's see. So, I'm in Hungary. So let's talk about Hungary and Viktor Orban. And Viktor Orban, Hungary's blockade, their blocking of money to Ukraine. So the foreign ministers, they met in Kiev. Borrell's very happy with the meeting in Kiev. He said it's historic. It's a historic meeting in Kiev. The foreign ministers are showing solidarity with Ukraine, with Kiev, with Zelensky. Zelensky, I think he got really, really hurt, emotionally damaged from his trip to the United States and Canada. I mean, he really got emotionally damaged because Stoltenberg, he had to travel to Kiev right away to console Zelensky. That's how upset Zelensky was from his trip to the United States and Canada. Stoltenberg, right away, he flew to Kiev to to console Zelensky, to hug Zelensky. Zelensky, it's going to be all right. Don't worry. Everyone has bad trips to the United States and Canada. It'll get better. NATO's here. NATO's here to hold you, to take care of you. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Stoltenberg. Please hold me. Hold me. Love me. Kiss me. Duda doesn't call me anymore. Duda doesn't return my calls anymore. And now you have the foreign ministers. They travel to Kiev too, to show solidarity with Zelensky, to show support for Zelensky. So, look, all joking aside, the trip went really, really bad in the United States and Canada, and NATO, the European Union, they're trying to rally around Zelensky, and they're trying to send a message to the United States that the European Union is going to support Zelensky in this long war, right? And so Borrell, he tweeted, "We are convening a historic meeting of EU foreign ministers here in Ukraine, candidate country and future member of the EU." That is what Borrell tweeted. He's very happy, Jungle Joseph. Very, very happy. And they're trying to get money to Ukraine, right? But Hungary is blocking that money. Now, Hungary is blocking that money. One of the reasons why Hungary is blocking the money to Ukraine, I believe it's something like 5 billion euros, is because, and right away he's going to get 500 million. So it's like a 5 billion package over 2020, 23, 24 that they want to give to Zelensky, and 500 million or something that they want to give to him like right away. And the reason Hungary is blocking it, one of the reasons, is because the bank, OTP, which if you're in Budapest is everywhere, right? OTP is all over. And the Zelensky regime, they've branded them like a war sponsor, right? They say they sponsor war because OTP, I forgot what the situation was. I think OTP was doing business with Russia or continues to do business with Russian account holders and Russian businesses. And so the Zelensky regime's like, you're a sponsor of war, and they put them on this war sponsors list, right? Kiev loves its lists, the Midotvorets, the peacemaker list, this war sponsors list. They love to put together lists. And Hungary said, okay, well, you're going to put us on a list as a war sponsor. Well, then no money for you. That's basically what they said. If you're going to put OTP Bank on a war sponsors list, we're not going to approve any money. And then, of course, you have the issue that the European Union is withholding something like 20 billion plus in EU funds, which belong to Hungary. This is from the KUF and that time period. Hungary should get its portion, its piece of like the KUF relief fund and all that stuff is something like 20 billion. And the EU has been withholding that 20 billion because they want to make life very difficult for people in Hungary and for the Orban government. And they're hoping for some sort of regime change of Orban, right? They absolutely despise Orban. And so they've been withholding this 20 billion for years now. This goes before, this predates the conflict in Ukraine. And so Hungary's like, look, no money for Zelensky, period. No money. And so what has Ukraine done? Well, Ukraine has, in order to get the 500 million and secure the 5 billion, Ukraine has finally removed OTP from this war sponsors list. That is the news that I have read. I'm not 100% on that, by the way. I have heard that Ukraine is going to suspend OTP Bank from this list, which means they can put it back on the list once they get the 500 million. But Hungary's like, look, either remove the bank and never put it on the list ever again, or you're never going to get any money from the European Union. The last I read is that Ukraine has backed down. Hungary has defeated Ukraine, and Ukraine has said, okay, you win. You win. We'll remove OTP permanently from this war sponsors list. And we are getting reports that the European Union, they're trying to get Orban and Hungary on side, like permanently on side, to give more money to Ukraine, 5 billion and more, just more. There's 5 billion, more and more billions in the future. And to do that, they are telling Orban, look, we need you to be a permanent yes when it comes to funding Ukraine. So in order for you to be a permanent yes when it comes to giving money to Zelensky, we'll unlock, I think they said 13 billion of like the 20, 21, 22 billion that is owed to Hungary. And that's where we are. So this is a big win for Orban. If he gets like the 13 billion, then he's owed like another 9 or 10 or 11 billion. But he's pretty much unlocked more than half of the money that the EU has been withholding from Hungary. And keep in mind, this is Hungary's money. This has been owed to Hungary for many, many years. Big win for Orban. A very, very big win if this is indeed what happens. So that is the situation with the EU foreign ministers meeting in Kiev, with Orban, with the money that they're withholding from Hungary, with the 500 million that Zelensky wants right now, right away. And let's see here. Let's do one more story and we will wrap this thing up. We'll do a clown world and wrap this thing up. Let's go to Georgia. Let's go to Georgia and talk about what's going on there. So Georgia, the Georgian government, they claim that they have apprehended a group of people who traveled to Georgia, to Tbilisi, in order to start up a color revolution. And this group of people, they are part of an organization called Canvas. Now, people in Serbia, they're going to recognize this name, Canvas. Canvas stands for Center for Applied Nonviolent Strategies, and its mission is to advocate for the use of nonviolent resistance in the promotion of human rights and democracy. According to the group's website, it was co-founded by Chinovic and Srida Popovic, two prominent members of OTPOR, a US-backed student group that played a key role in the October 2000 coup in Serbia. So the Georgian officials, they claim that these guys from Canvas traveled to Georgia and they were teaching people in Georgia how to conduct a proper color revolution, how to put together a proper color revolution. The Georgian government said on Monday it had interrogated agitators from a US-funded group planning to unleash a violent color revolution. The group was previously involved in the 2003 civil unrest in the country. The head of the ruling party explained that he is seeking an explanation from Washington. The US Embassy in Tbilisi didn't deny bankrolling the outfit, but said its activities were about supporting Georgian democracy. According to Georgia's State Security Services, SUS, 3 Serbian nationals from the organization called Canvas arrived in Georgia last week and met with local activists at a Tbilisi hotel to train them how to overthrow the government by violent means. I've heard of these Canvas guys in Otpor. I've heard of them. I think, could be wrong about this, but Otpor, doesn't Soros or the Open Society of Soros, don't they have some sort of connection with these groups? I could be wrong about that. Don't take that one to the bank. But I remember reading about Canvas and Otpor, and I remember the Open Society Foundation and Soros and the U.S. government, USAID. From what I understand, USAID, Samantha Power, they're heavily involved in Canvas and these groups, Canvas, Otpor, and these groups that are experts in starting color revolutions. So the U.S. Embassy, I think they've denied this, and they said that these guys were in Georgia in order to promote human rights and stuff like that. In a statement later in the day, the U.S. Embassy in Tbilisi said that the accusations against Canvas are false and fundamentally mischaracterize the goals of our assistance to Georgia. USAID to Tbilisi has always been transparent, the embassy insisted, adding that Canvas was contracted by USAID more than 2 years ago to deliver training to mothers advocating for better cancer treatments for children and to people advocating for the rights of elderly citizens in their community. So that is the response from the U.S. Embassy. Georgia. Georgia is indeed being targeted. The collective West is not happy with the government in Georgia. They want the government to change and to be more pro-West, because the government in Georgia, slowly, step by step, they are trying to mend, to fix up their relations with Russia, and this is irking the collective West in a big way. All right, how am I doing on time? All right, a couple of minutes, and we'll wrap up this video. We'll do some clown worlds, and we'll get this video posted. So, the first clown world. Elon Musk. Elon Musk tweeted about Zelensky yesterday. I talked about it in my clown world, where he said he had like a meme photo of Zelensky in school, and this meme is like a nervous, anxious Zelensky, and Elon Musk wrote on top. The meme says on the top, "You're like what you look like when it's been 5 minutes and you've received no money," or something like that. It was making fun at the fact that Zelensky is always asking for money. And that was a tweet from Elon Musk. And people in Ukraine, they flipped out. You had parliament members. Parliament members were tweeting nasty things about Elon Musk because he made fun of Zelensky, always begging for money. And people in Ukraine are actually, from what I understand, they're actually vandalizing Tesla cars. That's how crazy they've gotten over this tweet from Elon Musk. So it worked. I think Elon Musk was looking to troll the Zelensky regime and the Zelensky government, and it worked. 100% it worked. So yeah, they're flipping out over the fact that Elon Musk is making fun of Zelensky, constantly running around begging for money. That's my first clown world. My second clown world is Diane Feinstein, and she passed away at, I believe, like 92, 93 years old. Anyway, she passed away, and we're now getting reports of her wealth. Let me pull up the tweet here. From Colin Rug, report, Diane Feinstein is leaving behind a massive 100 million plus portfolio to her 4 daughters, a public servant on a 6-figure salary who was worth 8 figures plus. Remarkable. Here is what Feinstein left behind: a $60 million private jet, a $21 million San Francisco mansion, a $7.4 million Washington, D.C. home, a $5 million Hawaii home, and $70 million in cash in the bank. Experts estimate her personal net worth was over $70 million. Washington is beyond corrupt. That's the tweet from Colin Rug. And underneath this tweet, there is an ex-community note. It said, readers added context they thought people might want to know. Feinstein's husband started his own private equity and investment firm 5 years before they married in 1980, and his net worth was estimated to be over $1 billion at the time of his death in 2022. Some of Feinstein's net worth is from joint assets with her husband. Now, you would think that in a normal world, that might explain her wealth. But when I read this community note from Twitter, what I said is that they're actually proving her corruption, her alleged corruption, because Pelosi's family is pretty much involved in the same thing, right? Pelosi is in the House. She's been a representative in the House for 200 years, whatever, and her husband is this big time investor, and we all know about Pelosi's track record when it comes to investing in stocks, right? She's the greatest investor in all of history, like the greatest investor in all of history. No one even comes close. And so when I read this community note, I said, this is the same setup as Pelosi. She's in the Senate, she's in Congress, and her husband has an investment firm, and he's made, says here, over $1 billion. That's what it says here. Or his company was worth over $1 billion. It's almost like this community note is proving their alleged corruption. Here's what Colin Rug said in reply to this community note. Feinstein and her investment banker husband dumped Allogene Therapeutics stock just weeks before the coup. After being briefed on it, they were investigated by the FBI, who of course later dropped the case. Just a coincidence? Imagine how much insider trading was going on for her 30 years in office. So, and he goes on and on about this investment banker setup. One's an investment banker, an investment firm, and the other partner, the husband or the wife, is in Congress. And this seems to be the setup. I don't know, but I can't confirm this. I'm reading you this tweet, but definitely her net worth is huge. She made a ton of money. She was worth a ton of money. Now, if her husband made this money legit, good on him. But I don't know. I'm thinking that maybe, just perhaps, maybe Feinstein's husband's investment firm was making the same types of successful investments that Pelosi's husband's investment firm has been making. I don't know. Seems like they have a really good feel for what stocks to buy and what stocks to dump. Anyway, where they get that information, who knows? Who knows where they're getting that information from as far as buying and selling? I just don't know. They just have that intuition. These investment firms with their spouses in Congress, they seem to have this intuition for investment. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. We are also on X, formerly known as Twitter. Go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code good day. Take care.